The clinic was too quiet. Fluorescent lights hummed above the empty hallway, flickering every few seconds, and the smell of antiseptic clung to the air like fog. Dr. Aria Lane, 24, leaned over the examination table, her hands trembling as she tried to stop the bleeding from a German shepherd sprawled across the cold steel. The dog's chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven gasps. Blood soaked through the temporary bandage she'd wrapped moments ago, spreading a dark stain across the white fabric. "Stay with me, boy," Aria whispered, pressing a towel against the wound. "Don't you dare give up on me." The clinic's old clock ticked too loud in the silence. It was almost midnight. The senior vet, Dr. Miller, had gone home hours ago, leaving her to close up. Normally, she didn't mind the solitude, but tonight it pressed down on her, heavy and wrong. The dog whimpered weakly, eyes clouded with pain. His owner had rushed in just before closing, sobbing, panicked, saying a car had hit him. Then, after signing the form, he disappeared to make a phone call and never came back. Now it was just Aria, the dying animal, and the growing certainty that she couldn't save him alone. She glanced at her phone, its battery icon flashing red. Dead. Of course. She grabbed the clinic's dusty landline and punched in Dr. Miller's number from memory. Her fingers shook, and one of the numbers slipped. The phone rang. Once. Twice. "Come on," she muttered. "Please pick up." On the fourth ring, someone answered. "Hello." The voice was deep, rough around the edges, not Dr. Miller's calm, tired rasp. It was commanding. It vibrated through the receiver like a quiet growl. Aria froze. "Dr. Miller?" "It's Aria. I need help. A German shepherd's been hit by a car. He's bleeding out. I can't stop it." There was silence for a moment. Then, the voice returned, lower, firmer. "Where are you?" "The clinic," she said quickly. "The Ridgeview Veterinary on Maple Street. Please, I need." "I'll be there," the voice interrupted. "Don't move. Keep pressure on the wound." "What? Wait, who are you?" But the line was already dead. Aria stared at the receiver, heart pounding. That wasn't Dr. Miller. She'd called the wrong number. Panic clawed at her chest. She should hang up, try again, but there was no time. The dog's breathing was fading fast. She pressed harder, whispering encouragements that trembled with desperation. Minutes passed. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the glass doors. Then, headlights swept across the parking lot, not one set, but several. Aria lifted her head. 3 black SUVs rolled in, their engines cutting off in eerie unison. Her pulse spiked. "Oh God, what have I done?" The clinic bell chimed as the door opened. The man who stepped inside wasn't a vet. He was tall, easily 6'3", dressed in black from coat to boots, with shoulders that filled the doorway. His hair was dark, cropped close, his face sharp and unreadable. But it was his eyes that rooted her to the spot, a shade of gold so dark they almost looked black, watching everything with predator stillness. Behind him came 4 other men, silent, disciplined, moving like shadows. They spread out through the clinic, scanning exits, corners, and windows as if expecting an ambush. Aria's throat went dry. "You're not Dr. Miller." "No," the man said, voice deep and smooth. "You called me instead." I called the wrong number," she stammered, backing a step. "You need to leave. This is private property. I don't know who you are." He didn't answer. His gaze shifted to the table. The dying dog whimpered again, his paws twitching weakly. The man's expression changed, softened, just slightly. "What happened to him?" "Car hit him," Aria said automatically. "Internal bleeding. Maybe a collapsed lung. I don't have the tools to." "Show me," he said simply, already rolling up his sleeves. She blinked. "You can't just." He ignored her, washing his hands at the sink with efficient, practiced movements. The men who'd come with him stood like sentinels, silent, alert. "You're a vet," she demanded. "Something like that," he said. "Hold him still." Aria hesitated. Every instinct screamed that this was insane, letting a stranger touch a patient, especially one who arrived with bodyguards and eyes like a wolf's. But the dog was dying. If there was even a chance this man could help. She grabbed the dog's front legs, holding firm as he reached for the instruments. "Scalpel," he said. "Excuse me? Middle drawer. Hurry." Something in his tone made her obey. She handed it over, watching his steady hands as he examined the wound. He moved with the precision of someone who'd done this countless times, no hesitation, no wasted motion. Arya tried to follow his instructions, suctioning blood, keeping pressure where he directed. Their hands brushed once, and she felt a shock, not static, but heat, a pulse that ran up her arm straight to her racing heart. He paused for a fraction of a second, eyes flicking to hers, as if he'd felt it too. Then he returned to his work. "Collapsed lung," he murmured. "He won't make it unless we relieve the pressure." Arya's breath caught. "That takes surgery." "I know," he said, pulling a small metallic case from one of his men. Inside were medical tools she didn't recognize, gleaming silver under the clinic lights. He worked quickly, efficiently, murmuring low instructions that steadied her trembling hands. In less than 20 minutes, the dog's breathing deepened. His color improved. Arya stared, disbelief turning into awe. "It's impossible," she whispered. "He was dying." "He's stronger than you think," the man said softly, stroking the dog's head. "Who are you?" she asked again. He cleaned his hands, turned toward her, and said, "Lucian Vale." The name sounded important. Heavy. He reached into his coat and placed a black business card on the counter, embossed with only his name and a number. "No title. No address. If you need me again, call that number," he said. "For what?" she asked. "You'll know when." And with that, he and his men left, moving as silently as they'd come. Outside, the SUVs disappeared into the night, leaving Arya alone with a healed dog and 1,000 questions. She picked up the card again, her thumb brushing over the raised letters. Lucian Vale. The name felt like a secret. Like a promise she hadn't meant to make. By morning, Arya was convinced she'd dreamed half of it. The dog, now awake and wagging his tail, was proof she hadn't. His wounds had vanished, his breathing steady, as if he'd never been hurt at all. Dr. Miller nearly dropped his clipboard when he saw the X-rays. "Are you sure this is the same animal?" he asked, peering at the images. "No broken ribs, no scarring." "Lane, this dog looks like he's been healthy for years." Arya tried to explain, but her story sounded insane even to her own ears. I called the wrong number. A man came. He said his name was Lucian Vale. He just fixed him." Dr. Miller frowned. "Lucian Vale? Doesn't ring a bell. You sure he wasn't from animal control?" She shook her head. "He had people with him. Black cars. They moved like soldiers." Miller gave her a tired smile. "You've been working too many night shifts. Take the day off." But when Arya left the clinic, the unease didn't fade. She walked to her car, clutching her coffee, trying to shake the strange chill that had followed her all morning. Her small blue hatchback sat alone under the flickering streetlight. As she reached for the door, she froze. A black SUV was parked across the street. Tinted windows. Engine off. It hadn't been there when she arrived. Her heart thudded once, hard. "Relax," she muttered to herself. Coincidence. She got in, started the car, and tried not to look at the SUV as she drove off. But every mirror angle showed it still sitting there silent, watching. That night, Arya dreamed of gold eyes and the sound of a heartbeat that wasn't hers. When she woke, her phone was buzzing on the nightstand, an unknown number. She hesitated, thumb hovering. "Lucian Vale." "Hello," she said cautiously. "Did the animal survive?" His voice was unmistakable, that deep calm that made the air itself seem to still. "Yes," she said, sitting up. "But you never told me what you did. That wasn't normal medicine." "I told you," he said quietly, "I'm not normal." Silence stretched between them. Arya swallowed. "Who are you, really?" "A friend," he said simply. "And you should be careful tonight." Her pulse jumped. "Why?" But he'd already hung up. 2 hours later, Arya was locking up the clinic again when her phone buzzed, a message this time. "Get inside. Don't ask questions." She looked around, confused, when movement flickered near the alley. Two men stepped out of the shadows. Dressed in plain clothes, but their stance was wrong, tense, too practiced. Dr. Lane, the taller one called. His smile was stretched too wide. "We're with Ridge County Investigations. We need to ask a few questions about a man named Lucien Vale." Her stomach dropped. "Who?" "Come on now," the other said, flashing an ID too fast for her to read. "You spoke to him last night." "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, stepping back toward the clinic door. "And I don't talk to strangers after dark." The taller one's smile vanished. "You'll want to cooperate. It's safer that way." The second man reached into his jacket and Arya ran. Her keys slipped from her fingers. Footsteps thundered behind her. She darted toward the main street, lungs burning, mind racing when a sound stopped everything. A low, rumbling growl echoed from the shadows. The men froze. One pulled a gun, the other swore under his breath. From between the parked cars, 3 wolves emerged. Massive. Black as midnight. Their eyes glowed faintly in the streetlight, intelligent and terrifying. "Wolves," one man whispered. "Jesus, shoot them." But before he could aim, the largest wolf lunged, knocking the gun aside with a snarl that rattled the air. The men screamed and ran, scrambling into their van, tires screeching as they sped off into the dark. Arya stood frozen, chest heaving. The wolves turned their heads toward her. The biggest one's eyes were gold, deep, familiar gold. Her lips parted. "Lucien." The wolf's ears flicked at the sound of his name. Light shimmered around him, not bright, but strange, bending reality. And where the wolf had stood, now stood a man. Lucien. His coat unbuttoned, his expression unreadable, eyes the same molten gold she'd seen in her dream. "You're not human," Arya breathed. "No," he said softly. "And now you know why that call was never a mistake." The night air was cold against Arya's skin, but she barely felt it. She stood in the empty parking lot, staring at the man who had just changed from a wolf into a human. Lucien's eyes still glowed faintly, a gold that seemed to cut through the dark. The wolves beside him, his men, she realized, remained silent, watching her with sharp, intelligent eyes. Their fur gleamed under the streetlight, not ordinary black, but the kind that swallowed light completely. Her heart hammered. "What are you?" she whispered. Lucien took a slow step toward her. "Something you shouldn't have found," he said quietly. His voice was low, but there was no threat in it, only the kind of power that made her instinctively still. "And yet you did." Arya shook her head, backing up until her back hit the wall of the clinic. No, this isn't real. People don't turn into wolves. That's..." He cut her off gently. "You saw it. You know it's real." "I saw something," she said, her voice trembling. "But it doesn't make sense." Lucien's gaze softened, though his posture remained perfectly controlled. "It doesn't have to make sense tonight. What matters is that those men weren't police. They were hunters. They know you talked to me. They'll come back." "Hunters," she repeated. "They hunt people like me," he said, his tone darkening. "And anyone who stands too close." Arya's stomach dropped. "So what you're saying, I'm in danger because I called the wrong number?" A faint, humorless smile touched his lips. "There are no wrong numbers," he said. "Not when fate is involved." Before she could respond, one of the wolves growled softly, head snapping toward the street. Lucien's eyes narrowed. "They're circling back." Arya glanced toward the road. Headlights appeared in the distance, 2 vehicles moving fast. Lucien turned to her. "We have to go. Now." "I'm not going anywhere with you," she protested, backing up. "You just turned into a wolf. Would you rather go with the men who tried to drag you into a van?" he asked, voice hard now. Arya froze. He had a point, a terrifying one. Lucien took a step closer. "You're not safe here. Not in this town, not tonight. Come with me, and I can keep you alive." His eyes caught hers, and for a heartbeat she felt that strange pull again, the same energy that had sparked between them in the clinic. It wasn't fear. It wasn't reason either. It was something deeper, like her body knew his voice before her mind did. She nodded once, trembling. "Okay. Just, don't hurt me." Lucian's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "I won't," he said. "Not now. Not ever." He turned, motioning to the wolves. "Shift and secure the perimeter." The animals shimmered and became men, silent, powerful, moving with inhuman grace. One handed Lucian a dark coat, another opened the door to one of the black SUVs. Lucian guided Arya gently but firmly toward it. "Stay down. Don't look back." The engine roared to life, and before she could take another breath, they were gone, racing out of town, headlights slicing through the forest road that wound into the mountains. Arya pressed herself into the seat, clutching her trembling hands. Outside, the world blurred into black trees and moonlight. Inside, the car smelled faintly of leather and something else, wild, ancient, electric. Lucian sat beside her in silence, eyes fixed on the road. After several minutes, Arya found her voice. "Where are you taking me?" "To my territory," he said simply. "Territory? Like some kind of gang hideout?" He glanced at her, a faint hint of amusement breaking through the tension. "Something like that. Though the world we belong to is older than any gang." "Your world," she repeated. "You mean the world where people turn into wolves?" His jaw tightened slightly. "We call ourselves shifters. Humans with a second form. Our kind has lived hidden for centuries." Arya stared at him, mind spinning. "And you're there, what? Leader?" Lucian didn't answer immediately. The SUV turned onto a narrow dirt path that climbed higher into the hills. "I'm what my people call the Alpha King," he said finally. "I lead the largest pack in the Western Territories." Arya blinked at him. "You're joking. Do I look like a man who jokes?" She hesitated. No, he didn't. Everything about him, his control, his stillness, felt too sharp for humor. The car slowed as they reached a wide iron gate hidden between pine trees. A guard stepped out of a shadowed booth, nodded, and opened it without a word. Beyond the gate lay something out of a dream or a nightmare. A sprawling compound sat nestled in the mountains, lit by warm golden lights that glowed through glass walls. Buildings of stone and wood surrounded a central courtyard where more people, men, women, even children, moved quietly, some human, some unmistakably not. Arya caught a glimpse of glowing eyes in the dark, the flicker of fur under moonlight. Her breath caught. "What is this place?" Lucian glanced at her. "Home." The SUV stopped near a large building with wide steps and carved wolf symbols on the doors. Lucian stepped out and came around to open her door. Arya hesitated. "If I go in there, will you let me leave?" His expression was unreadable. "If you still want to leave once you understand what's happening, I'll take you anywhere you want to go." There was something in his tone, an unspoken truth. He didn't expect her to want to leave. Arya stepped out. The night smelled of pine and cold air, and beneath it, something wild she couldn't name. Inside, the building was warmer than she expected. Fire crackled in a massive stone hearth. The place looked more like a mountain lodge than a fortress. A tall man with light brown hair approached, offering a nod to Lucian. "You brought her." "This is Arya Lane," Lucian said. "She's under my protection." The man's eyes flicked to her, curious but not unkind. "I'm Darius. Beater of the Vale Pack." "Beater?" Arya repeated, half to herself. "Like in those wolf documentaries?" Darius smiled faintly. "Something like that." Lucian turned to her. "You need rest. We'll talk in the morning." "I don't need rest," she said, crossing her arms. "I need answers." He studied her for a moment, then sighed softly. "Very well. A few answers." He motioned toward a seat near the fire, and she reluctantly sat. "You said your people have been hidden for centuries," she began. "Why?" "Because humans fear what they don't understand," Lucian said. "Once, we lived openly among them. But fear breeds violence. So we learned to hide." Arya frowned. "Then why help me? You didn't even know who I was." Something unreadable passed through his eyes. "I heard your voice," he said quietly. "And I felt the bond." "Bond?" He looked into the fire. "Forget it for now. You wouldn't understand yet." Arya's pulse quickened. "Try me." Lucian's gaze met hers again, steady and intense. There are rare connections in our kind, links that go deeper than logic. You call it coincidence. We call it fate. She opened her mouth to argue, but the words stuck. Because deep down, she already felt it. That impossible pull whenever he looked at her. Lucian stood. You'll stay in the East Wing. Darius will show you. Arya wanted to protest again, but exhaustion finally caught up to her. Her body was shaking, her mind reeling. As she followed Darius down a hallway lined with old photographs and flickering lanterns, she glanced back once. Lucian stood by the fire, staring into the flames like a man burdened with too many ghosts. Arya woke to sunlight streaming through enormous windows. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she sat up and remembered wolves, the attack, Lucian. Her heart started to race again. She dressed quickly in the clothes that had been left on a chair, soft cotton pants and a dark sweater that fit perfectly, as if someone had guessed her size. A knock came at the door. "May I come in?" It was Darius. Arya opened the door cautiously. "Morning," she said, though she wasn't sure if it was polite to greet a pack of supernatural wolves. Darius smiled. "Lucian's waiting in the council hall. He thought you'd want breakfast first." He gestured toward a long table in the next room where fruit, eggs, and pastries waited. Arya's stomach growled in spite of her nerves. They ate mostly in silence until she finally asked, "How many of you are there?" "Hundreds," Darius said. "Maybe thousands, across different territories. Lucian leads the largest. And you all just live here? Hidden from the world?" "Hidden, yes," he said. "But not isolated. We have people who interact with humans. Businesses. Schools. Some of us even marry outside our kind." Arya blinked. "So it's not like those movies where everyone's savage and half-naked in the woods?" Darius chuckled. "Not unless it's a full moon party." She couldn't tell if he was joking. When they reached the hall, Lucian was standing by a large map pinned to the wall, covered in red marks. He looked up as she entered. "You slept," he said simply. "Barely," she replied. "My brain kept trying to explain away everything I saw." "And did it succeed?" "No," she admitted. Lucian's lips curved slightly. "Good. It means you're accepting the truth faster than most." She crossed her arms. "You still haven't told me why those men wanted me. I don't even know what I have to do with any of this." Lucian's expression darkened. "That's what I intend to find out." He motioned to the map. "The group that attacked you, they call themselves Project Dominion. They've been tracking my kind for years, experimenting on captured shifters to create controllable hybrids." Arya felt cold all over. "That's monstrous." He nodded. "And lately, they've been targeting humans who've had unexplained healing incidents. People like you." "Me," she whispered. "I'm just a vet. I help animals." Lucian stepped closer. "That's exactly what drew their attention. The night we met, you kept that dog alive far longer than a normal human could. You did it without the right tools, without panic. Tell me, Arya, has this ever happened before?" Her mind flashed through years of memories, birds that flew again after she touched them, patients who healed faster under her care. She'd always thought it was luck or intuition. "I don't know," she said quietly. "Maybe." Lucian studied her face. "It's possible your family carries shifter blood. There are lines of humans who once mixed with our kind. Some are born without the ability to shift, but with gifts, healing, empathy, foresight. Dominion would want that." Arya sat heavily in a chair, trying to breathe. "So I'm some kind of half-breed?" "Not half," he said. "Unique." Silence stretched between them. The fire crackled softly. Finally, Arya asked, "Why do you care? You could have let them take me." Lucian looked at her, and for the first time his control slipped a little. "Because I felt the bond," he said again, voice lower now. "And if they took you, they'd use you to destroy us." She swallowed. "Bond? You keep saying that. What does it mean?" Lucian hesitated, then took a slow breath. "Among my kind, every alpha has one fated match. A mate who balances his power. It's rare. Sometimes it never happens. But when it does, it's unbreakable. Her heart started pounding again. And you think that's me? He met her gaze, and she saw it, certainty, steady as a heartbeat. I don't think, he said softly. I know. Arya shook her head, standing. That's insane. We barely know each other. You can't just decide I belong to you because of some supernatural connection. Lucian's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. It isn't a decision. It's a truth neither of us chose. I don't believe in fate, she said. Then believe in instinct, he replied. Your pulse, your eyes, the way you looked at me that first night, you felt it too. Arya wanted to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. Because deep down, she had felt it. Lucian stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him, smell the faint scent of pine and smoke on his skin. I will not force you, he said quietly. But you need to understand, the bond doesn't wait for permission. It exists. And it's why they'll never stop hunting you. Arya's throat felt tight. Then what do we do? Lucian's eyes softened. We start by keeping you alive, he said. And by finding out what you really are. Outside, the wind howled through the mountains, carrying the sound of distant wolves. Inside, under the Alpha King's unyielding gaze, Arya Lane realized her life had just crossed a line she could never step back from. The next morning dawned grey and misty. Clouds rolled over the mountains like slow-moving smoke. The hollow Lucian's hidden compound looked different in daylight. Less terrifying, more alive. Arya could see people moving between the buildings, some carrying tools, others training in a wide courtyard where silver weapons flashed in the early sun. The sound of wolves howling echoed faintly through the valley, a sound both eerie and beautiful. Arya stood by her window, arms wrapped around herself. She'd barely slept. Her mind was tangled with questions that refused to rest about shifters, Dominion, Lucian, and worst of all, the word he'd spoken last night. Mate. The word made her heart race and her stomach twist at the same time. A soft knock pulled her from her thoughts. She turned as the door opened and a woman stepped in carrying a tray of food. She looked to be about Arya's age, with soft brown hair and calm hazel eyes. Good morning, she said with a smile. I'm Myra. Lucian asked me to bring you breakfast. Thank you, Arya said, sitting at the edge of the bed. You all really have this whole hidden kingdom thing figured out, don't you? Myra laughed lightly. It's not a kingdom. It's a home. We're just careful about who knows we exist. Right, Arya murmured, staring at the tray. Eggs, fruit, bread, normal food for a very abnormal place. You're a shifter too? Myra nodded. Born one. My parents were healers in the old days, before Dominion started hunting us again. The word healer made Arya pause. Healer? Like medical healers? Myra hesitated. Not exactly. Healers are rare. They can use energy to mend wounds, calm pain, even draw life back from the edge of death. She studied Arya carefully. Lucian thinks you might be one. Arya's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. That's impossible. I'm not one of you. Myra's expression softened. You don't have to be a full shifter to have a gift. Blood remembers, even if your mind doesn't. Arya felt the room shrink around her. My parents never told me anything like that. Maybe they couldn't, Myra said gently. Some families went into hiding long ago. Some erased their own histories to keep their children safe. Before Arya could reply, another knock came. This time it was heavier, confident. Lucian stepped in. He looked different in daylight too, less like a monster, more like something carved from stone. His dark hair was damp from the rain, his black shirt clinging to broad shoulders. There was power in the way he filled the doorway, quiet but undeniable. Myra, he said in his calm, commanding tone. We'll need privacy. Myra bowed slightly and slipped out. Arya felt her pulse quicken as Lucian shut the door behind her. He turned toward her. We found something, he said without preamble. What kind of something? She asked cautiously. He handed her a file. Inside were faded documents, birth certificates, medical records, and photos of two people she recognized immediately. Her parents. I had my people search old archives, Lucian said. Your family name appears in a Dominion database from 17 years ago. Arya looked up sharply. Why would Dominion have records about my parents? Because they were hunted too, he said quietly. They were part of a bloodline known as the Orline Healers. Your mother's name, Lydia Lane, appears in reports from a failed capture attempt. They escaped, changed identities, and raised you far from the cities. Arya stared down at the pictures. Her mother's gentle smile, her father's tired eyes. She remembered a car crash, the police saying it had been quick. They died in an accident. Lucien's voice softened. No, Arya. Dominion killed them. The words hit like a blade. Her breath caught in her throat. No, she whispered. That can't be true. I wish it weren't, he said. But the evidence is clear. Arya's hands trembled as she traced the photo edges. Why me then? If they killed my parents, why not me? They didn't know what you were yet, Lucien said. But now, after what happened at the clinic, your gift woke up. When you touched that dog, you pulled him back from death. That kind of healing leaves a trace, an energy signature Dominion can track. Arya pressed a shaking hand to her temple. So they're coming for me. Lucien nodded once. They won't stop until they have you. That's why you must stay here. This is the only place they can't reach. She looked up at him, eyes burning. And what am I supposed to do? Hide while people die because of me? Lucien's gaze softened. You survive. That's all I ask for now. Arya stood abruptly, anger flaring. I didn't ask to be part of this. I just wanted to save an animal, not start a war. Lucien didn't flinch. No one asks for destiny, Arya. But when it calls, you answer. She glared at him. You talk like it's so easy. It's not, he said, voice low. But running from what you are doesn't change it. The silence stretched between them, thick with tension and something else she couldn't name. Finally, Lucien turned away. There's a gathering tonight. The Pack Council wants to meet you. Meet me? Why? Because they need to see the woman fate tied to their alpha, he said simply. Arya's heart stumbled. You still think I'm your mate? I don't think, Lucien replied, eyes meeting hers. I feel it. Every breath you take, every heartbeat, it calls to me. She backed up a step. You can't just claim me like some prize. His jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. Then prove me wrong. Stay through the full moon tomorrow night. If the bond doesn't react, you're free to go. Arya hesitated. And if it does? Lucien's gaze softened. Then your life will never be the same. That evening, the hollow was alive with quiet energy. Arya followed Myra through the halls, nerves twisting in her stomach. The council chamber was vast and circular, with torches burning along the stone walls. Dozens of shifters sat around a long table, men and women with eyes that gleamed like the animals within them. Lucien stood at the head of the room. When he saw Arya enter, his expression shifted, guarded, but proud. He extended a hand toward her. This is Dr. Arya Lane, he said. The human who saved one of our own. Murmurs rippled through the room. Some curious. Some skeptical. An older man spoke first. You brought a human here? An outsider? She's more than human, Lucien said calmly. Her blood carries the old healing line. Another voice, sharp and female, cut through the noise. Then she's a danger. Dominion hunts healers. Bringing her here puts all of us at risk. Lucien's golden eyes hardened. She's under my protection. Anyone who challenges that protection challenges me. The room went silent. Power rolled off him like heat from fire, and even the doubters lowered their heads. Arya stared, realizing for the first time just how much authority he carried. He wasn't just a man who turned into a wolf. He was a king among predators. When the meeting ended, she slipped out quietly. The cool night air felt like relief. But as she stepped into the courtyard, a shadow moved in the trees. A prickle crawled up her neck. Then she saw it, a glint of metal, the shape of a rifle aimed at the building. A tranquilizer dart whizzed past her shoulder, embedding in the wall. Lucien, she shouted. In a blur of motion, Lucien was there, shifting mid-stride into a massive black wolf. He lunged toward the trees with terrifying speed. Shouts and gunfire echoed through the night. By the time the others reached the edge of the forest, the attackers were gone, vanished into the dark. Lucien returned moments later, human again, eyes blazing. "They found us," he said grimly. "Dominion knows you're here." Arya's blood ran cold. "What do we do now?" Lucien's answer was simple. "We prepare for war." The hollow was never still after that night. Guards doubled, barriers strengthened. Everyone moved with sharp alertness, waiting for the next strike. Arya tried to help in any way she could, tending to injured guards, cleaning wounds, mixing herbal salves. The shifters began to watch her differently, with cautious respect. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something inside her was changing. The longer she stayed near Lucien, the more she felt his presence, like a heartbeat echoing faintly inside her chest. That night was the full moon. Myra helped her dress in a simple white gown. "It's tradition," she explained. "If you really are his mate, the moon will show it." Arya swallowed hard. "And if I'm not? Then you'll have your freedom," Myra said softly. Outside, the entire pack gathered around a great stone circle lit by firelight. The moon hung low and heavy in the sky, bathing everything in silver. Lucien stood in the center, barefoot, his eyes gleaming like molten gold. When he saw Arya approach, he bowed his head slightly. "Thank you for coming." "I still think this is insane," she murmured. "Perhaps," he said, "but the truth doesn't wait for belief." He reached out his hand. After a long pause, she placed hers in his. His skin was warm, his touch steady. The moment their palms met, the air around them shifted, thickened, like the world itself was holding its breath. A soft wind rose, carrying the scent of pine and smoke. The moonlight brightened, spilling over them. Then, suddenly, Arya felt it, heat spreading from her chest outward, a pulse that matched his heartbeat perfectly. She gasped, trying to pull away, but Lucien held her gently. "Breathe," he whispered. "Don't fight it." "I can't," she choked out, eyes wide as golden light began to glow faintly under her skin, tracing lines along her veins like living fire. Around them, the pack gasped and dropped to one knee. Lucien's voice was low, reverent. "The bond is real." Arya trembled. "What's happening to me?" "The moon is marking you," he said softly. "It recognizes what we are." The glow faded slowly, leaving only the pounding of two hearts beating as one. Arya pulled her hand free, staggering back. "No," she whispered. "This can't be real." Lucien's gaze was full of a quiet sadness. "It is." Before either could speak again, a horn sounded from the outer wall. Shouts echoed through the compound. Darius came running, his face pale. "They've breached the perimeter." Lucien's eyes darkened. "Dominion." He turned to Arya. "Go inside. Now." "No," she said, voice shaking. "I can help. Let me heal." "Not this time," he growled. "If they take you, everything we've built falls. Do you understand?" Arya's throat closed around the protest. She nodded, though every part of her wanted to fight beside him. Lucien shifted before her eyes, bones stretching, fur rippling through skin, his human form melting into the massive black wolf she'd first seen in the parking lot. The air trembled with power as he let out a low, furious howl. Wolves answered from all around. Arya watched as the pack surged forward into the darkness, their howls rising in unison beneath the full moon. She felt the echo of it in her chest, a call that wasn't hers but still belonged to her somehow. As the battle raged beyond the walls, she pressed her glowing hand to her heart and whispered into the night, "Come back to me, Lucien." And somewhere in the chaos of the fight, he heard her. The bond pulsed once, strong and certain, even as gunfire echoed through the hollow. Smoke hung thick in the air. The night that had begun under the soft glow of a full moon now burned red with fire. Arya stood at the top of the stone steps, the cries of battle echoing through the hollow. Below her, the courtyard was chaos, wolves clashing with men in armored suits marked with the Dominion insignia. Bullets sparked against stone, claws tore through steel. Every sound cut through her chest like glass. Her hands trembled. Every instinct told her to run, to hide, but she couldn't look away. Somewhere in that storm of violence was Lucien. She could feel him, through the bond, through the strange pull in her chest that throbbed with every heartbeat that wasn't her own. "Myra," Arya cried, as the other woman sprinted toward her. "What can I do? There must be something." Myra's face was pale, streaked with soot. "You can help the wounded. The medics are near the East Hall." Arya nodded and ran. The ground shook beneath her feet as another explosion lit the night. She ducked behind a wall and burst into the infirmary. It was packed, wolves in both forms lay on tables and floors, bleeding and gasping, while others fought to keep them alive. Without thinking, Arya dropped to her knees beside a young shifter with a deep wound across his chest. He couldn't be older than 18. His breathing was ragged, shallow. "Stay with me," she whispered, pressing her hand to the wound. Warm blood slicked her fingers. Her heart pounded harder. Something deep inside her, something that had been sleeping all her life, awoke. Her palms began to glow faintly, threads of light seeping into the boy's torn skin. His eyes widened, then softened. Within seconds, the bleeding slowed. The flesh knit together. Gasps rippled through the room. Myra knelt beside her, awe in her eyes. "Arya, you're doing it." Arya's breath shook. "I don't know how. It just happens. Don't question it. Keep going." So she did. One after another, she moved through the wounded, her body running on instinct alone. With each person she healed, the light inside her burned brighter, but so did the exhaustion. Her hands trembled, her vision blurred. Still, she didn't stop. Until she felt it, pain that wasn't hers. A sharp tearing sensation deep in her chest, as though claws had scraped across her heart. "Lucien," she gasped, collapsing forward. Myra caught her. "What's wrong?" "His hurt," Arya whispered. "I can feel it." "Then go," Myra said urgently. "The pack needs their alpha alive." Arya staggered to her feet, every nerve in her body screaming for her to move. She followed the bond, like a thread tugging her through the chaos. She found him near the outer wall, half-shifted, blood streaking his arm, surrounded by fallen soldiers. His golden eyes locked on hers, and for a moment, time stopped. "Arya," he breathed. "You're bleeding," she said, rushing to him. "It's nothing," he growled, wiping the blood from his mouth. "You shouldn't be here." She ignored him, pressing her hands to his side. "Hold still. Arya. Don't argue with me for once," she snapped. The light returned, spilling from her palms into his torn flesh. The wound sealed under her touch, muscle knitting together as if time itself had reversed. When it was done, she swayed, dizzy. Lucien caught her before she fell. "You're burning yourself out." "I don't care," she whispered. "You're alive." He looked at her, something fierce and fragile flickering behind his eyes. "You shouldn't care," he said quietly. "But I'm glad you do." Before she could answer, a gunshot cracked the air. Lucien turned sharply, eyes blazing. From the tree line, a man stepped out tall, wearing a dark Dominion coat, his face cold and sharp. He carried a tranquilizer rifle, its barrel smoking. "Lucien Vale," the man said calmly. "At last." Lucien's voice was low and lethal. "Who are you?" The man smiled faintly. "Dr. Adrian Voss. You've cost me a decade of research." Arya's heart dropped. The name sounded familiar, the same one Lucien had mentioned from Dominion's files. The one who'd hunted her parents. Lucien's muscles tensed. "You're the one behind the hybrid experiments." Voss tilted his head. "We prefer the term advancements. Your species should be thanking me. I've found a way to make your kind better." Lucien growled. "By torturing them?" Voss ignored him. His eyes shifted to Arya. "And you must be the little healer they protected. You've grown into quite the miracle." Arya felt the rage rise in her chest. "You murdered my parents." "They made a choice," Voss said. "They could have joined us. You still can." Lucien stepped between them, a wall of fury. "Over my dead body." Voss smirked. "That can be arranged." He raised the rifle. Lucien lunged. The gun went off. There was a flash of movement. Arya shoved Lucien aside as the dart struck her shoulder. Pain exploded through her arm, spreading fast, thick, cold. Her legs gave out. Aria. Lucian caught her before she hit the ground. Her vision blurred, the world fading to grey. Don't let him take me. Lucian's roar shook the air. But Voss was already retreating into the forest, his soldiers covering his escape. Lucian lifted Aria into his arms, her body limp, her pulse faint. He could feel the poison coursing through her veins, a tranquilizer mixed with something far darker. Something that burned like silver and frost. He pressed his forehead against hers. "You won't die," he whispered. "I won't let you." Then he carried her into the night, the moon bleeding red above them. Aria drifted in and out of darkness. Sometimes she was weightless, floating in a sea of warmth. Other times, fire burned through her veins, searing and cold at once. Voices reached her dimly, Lucian's deep growl, Myra's urgent whisper, the echo of words she couldn't quite understand. When she opened her eyes, she was lying in a dim room filled with candlelight. Lucian sat beside her bed, his face carved with exhaustion and worry. His hand held hers tightly, as though letting go would make her vanish. Her throat was dry. Where are we?" He looked up instantly. Relief flickered across his face, but it was shadowed by fear. "You're safe. You were hit with a Dominion dart. It contained silver and a neurotoxin. Your body fought it for 2 days. 2 days, she whispered. Her limbs felt heavy, her mind fogged. Lucian nodded. "You should be dead." "Guess I didn't get the memo," she murmured weakly. His lips curved slightly, though the tension didn't leave his eyes. "You're stronger than even I imagined." Aria tried to sit up, wincing. What happened to Voss? Lucian's expression hardened. He escaped. But not for long. She saw the rage in his eyes, the kind that came from centuries of pain. "Lucian, killing him won't bring my parents back." He met her gaze. "No. But it might stop him from taking you away again." Silence filled the space between them. Aria looked down at her hands. They were pale, but when she flexed her fingers, faint lines of golden light shimmered beneath her skin. "Lucian," she said softly. "There's something wrong with me." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "The light, it's stronger now. I can feel it moving, like it's alive inside me. It's not just healing anymore." Lucian leaned forward. "Show me." Aria hesitated, then pressed her hand against a small cut on his wrist. The moment her skin touched his, warmth surged between them. The wound vanished, but so did the pain in her body. For a brief second, she saw flashes behind her eyes, wolves running under starlight, a woman with eyes like hers raising her hands to the sky, a crimson moon. She gasped and pulled back. "I saw something. Memories. Not mine." Lucian's expression darkened. "Your lineage. The Orline healers didn't just mend flesh. They could channel life itself. But it comes with a price." "A price," she repeated, her voice trembling. He nodded slowly. "Every life you save drains a piece of your own. The more you heal, the weaker you become." Aria's breath caught. "You mean, every time I help someone, I'm killing myself?" "Not killing," he said softly. "Giving. Your energy becomes theirs. That's why Dominion wants you. They don't see a woman. They see immortality." Tears burned behind her eyes. "Then what am I supposed to do? Stop helping? Let people die?" Lucian reached out, brushing his thumb along her cheek. "No. But you have to learn control. Otherwise, the power will burn you alive." Something in his touch grounded her, the storm in her chest eased. But even then, she could feel the bond between them thrumming, stronger than ever. When he touched her, the light inside her reacted, pulsing like it recognized him. She looked into his eyes. "Why does it feel like this when you're near me?" Lucian hesitated. "Because the bond amplifies everything. Our power, our senses, our pain. When you hurt, I feel it too." "Then you must be in agony," she whispered. "I am," he said quietly. "But not because of pain." Before she could answer, the door burst open. Darius rushed in, his face grim. "Alpha, we have a problem." Lucian stood instantly. "What now?" "Scouts found Dominion drones on the ridge. They've been watching us for hours." Lucian swore under his breath. They're tracking her. Arya tried to rise. Then I have to leave. If they're after me. Lucian turned sharply. You're not going anywhere. You said they'll keep coming. You can't protect me forever. Yes, I can, he growled, his voice echoing through the room. For a moment, his control cracked, the Alpha's authority bleeding through every word. You are mine to protect. That bond means your life is tied to mine. If you die, so do I. Arya froze. You never told me that. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Because I hoped it wouldn't come to this. She looked at him, voice trembling. Then you're trapped too. Lucian met her gaze. No, Arya. I'm anchored. The silence stretched between them again, filled with words neither dared to say. Finally, she whispered, what happens now? Lucian looked toward the window, where the first light of dawn crept over the mountains. We move before nightfall. Dominion knows where we are. If they want a war, we'll give them one, but this time, we'll be ready. Arya nodded slowly, her hand still faintly glowing. Then teach me, she said. If I'm going to survive this, I need to know how to use what I have. Lucian turned back to her, surprise flickering across his face. Then, slowly, a hint of pride softened his expression. Then we start at sunset. He stepped closer, his voice low and steady. But understand this, Arya, your power isn't a weapon. It's life itself. If you lose control, it will consume you. She met his gaze without fear this time. Then you'd better make sure I don't. Lucian's mouth curved into the faintest smile. You have no idea what you've just promised. Arya straightened, the gold light beneath her skin burning brighter. I think I do. Outside, the sun broke over the horizon, washing the hollow in gold. For the first time since the wrong call that had changed everything, Arya Lane didn't feel like a victim. She felt like the beginning of something far more dangerous. And in the distance, beneath the hum of morning, Lucian heard the first faint howls of his pack rising, calling not just to him, but to their new Luna. The healer. The bondmate. The weapon of light born under a blood moon. The war for their world had officially begun. The next evening, the hollow shimmered under the dying light of the sun. The fires from the battle had been cleared away, the scent of smoke replaced by pine and rain. But tension still hung heavy in the air, like thunder waiting to break. Lucian led Arya to the high cliffs that overlooked the valley. Wind rushed around them, sharp and cold, carrying the cries of wolves in the distance. The view stretched endlessly, mountains shadowed by mist, the world below hidden from human eyes. This is where you'll learn, Lucian said, turning to face her. It's far from the hollow, and no one will disturb us here. Arya crossed her arms. Learn what, exactly? You keep talking about power and control, but you haven't told me how any of this works. Lucian's gaze softened. Power begins with focus. When you healed those soldiers, you acted on instinct. Now, you'll learn intention. What you did unconsciously, you must now command. She frowned. So this is like magic lessons? His lips twitched slightly. Not magic. Instinct shaped by discipline. Sounds like something a wolf would say. He raised an eyebrow. Would you rather I bark it? She gave him a look. You know what I mean. Lucian smiled faintly, then motioned toward the clearing. Sit. She obeyed, though reluctantly, settling on the cool stone. Lucian knelt across from her, his eyes catching the last light of the setting sun. Close your eyes, he said. Breathe. Feel your heartbeat. She inhaled, slow and deep. The air smelled of pine and rain. Now, he continued, his voice low and steady, listen for mine. She frowned but focused. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then, faintly, she heard it. A steady rhythm echoing somewhere inside her chest that wasn't her own. Her eyes snapped open. I can feel it. Lucian nodded once. That's the bond. It connects us, power, pain, even heartbeat. Arya stared at him. That's terrifying. It's sacred, he corrected softly. But it can be dangerous if you don't learn control. That's why I need you to trust me. She hesitated. And if I can't? Then the bond will consume you, he said simply. Her breath caught. The calm way he said it made her believe it wasn't a threat, just truth. He held out his hand. Let's start small. Arya reached for him. Their fingers brushed, and heat flared instantly, not burning, but alive, like static that pulsed beneath her skin. Lucian didn't flinch. He drew her hand closer until her palm rested against his chest. Now, he murmured, call the light. How? She whispered. Don't think, he said. Feel. Picture something you want to protect. Let that guide you. Arya closed her eyes again. For a moment, she saw nothing. Then, slowly, images flickered behind her lids, the wounded shifter she had saved, Myra's determined eyes, Lucian's body collapsing in her arms, the desperate need to keep him alive. Warmth built inside her, spreading from her chest to her fingertips. Her skin glowed faintly, golden light rippling beneath the surface. Lucian inhaled sharply as the energy surged between them. His hand tightened on hers. Good. Now, don't let it control you. Direct it. Arya's brow furrowed. The light flickered, wild, shifting between bright gold and deep amber. It's too much. Then command it, he said, voice deepening. You are not its servant. It is yours. Her heartbeat quickened. Lucian, I can't. Yes, you can. He leaned closer, eyes burning. Look at me. She did. And something in his gaze steadied her. The world around them blurred until there was only the rhythm of their joined hearts. Slowly, the light steadied, forming a soft, glowing aura between their hands. Lucian exhaled, his expression unreadable. There. You see. It listens. Arya looked down at the light dancing between their palms. It feels alive. It is, he said quietly. It's life itself. Yours, and now, part of mine. They stayed like that for a long moment, the wind swirling around them, carrying the faint echoes of distant howls. The bond between them pulsed softly, a heartbeat of light and shadow. When Arya finally drew her hand away, she was shaking. That felt like falling and flying at the same time. Lucian smiled faintly. Then you're learning. Over the next several days, their training continued. Each night, Lucian pushed her further, testing the boundaries of her strength. She learned to heal without draining herself, to sense danger before it struck, to summon her energy like calling breath. But the bond between them grew stronger too, dangerously strong. Sometimes, when she looked at him, she saw flashes of memory that weren't hers. Battles fought long before she was born. A wolf standing alone against fire. A woman's voice whispering his name through centuries. One evening, as they trained beside a small fire, she asked, "How old are you really?" Lucian glanced up from sharpening his blade. "Old enough to have buried too many people." "That's not an answer." He smirked. "Neither was your question." She threw a pebble at him, and he caught it effortlessly, his smile widening. For a moment, the tension between them melted, replaced by something lighter, warmer. But just as quickly, it vanished. His expression darkened as he looked toward the mountains. "They're coming closer," he murmured. Arya stiffened. "Dominion?" He nodded. "My scouts found a forward base 15 miles north. They're using tech I've never seen. We'll have to strike before they do." Arya's stomach knotted. "You're going to attack them?" "We don't have a choice," Lucian said. "If we wait, they'll find the hollow again. Then I'm going with you." His eyes snapped to hers. "No. Lucian, I can help." "You'll stay here," he said sharply. "You're the reason they're coming. If you walk into that field, they'll use you as a weapon." Arya stepped closer. "I'm not afraid." "I am," he said quietly. The honesty in his voice stopped her cold. For the first time, she saw not the Alpha King, but the man beneath, weary, haunted, terrified of losing what he'd just found. She reached for him, her hand brushing his sleeve. "Then teach me to fight. If they come for us, I won't just stand by." He studied her for a long time, then finally nodded. "Tomorrow. At dawn." That night, sleep didn't come. Arya stood on the balcony of her room, watching the moon drift between clouds. The bond pulsed softly in her chest, steady, alive. Somewhere out in the mountains, Lucian was watching the same moon, and somehow, she knew he could feel her too. When dawn came, she met him in the courtyard. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I was born ready," she said, though her voice shook just a little. He grinned, a rare, fleeting thing. "We'll see." And as the first light of morning broke over the hollow, the Alpha King and his fated mate began the training that would decide both their fates. The training was brutal. Lucian didn't go easy on her. "If you hesitate," he warned, circling her, "you die. Dominion won't give you second chances." Arya wiped sweat from her forehead. "You're enjoying this." "Maybe a little," he said, dodging her next swing with infuriating ease. He'd given her a short blade forged from silver steel, light enough to move quickly but strong enough to pierce hybrid armor. "Use your instincts," he barked. "Don't think about the weapon. Feel the rhythm. Flow, not force." She lunged. He sidestepped, caught her wrist, and flipped her onto the ground before she could blink. "Oh," she groaned. Lucian crouched beside her, a glint of amusement in his eyes. "Better. But you left your right side open." "Maybe I wanted to fall," she muttered. His smile widened. "Liar." Arya scowled, pushing herself up. "You really don't like losing control, do you?" His grin faded. "I can't afford to." For a moment, something heavy flickered in his eyes, a shadow of old loss. Arya wanted to ask, but before she could, Darius appeared, his face grim. "Alpha," he said, "scouts just returned. Dominion's base isn't 15 miles away anymore. It's 5. Lucian's jaw tightened. "They're moving faster than expected." Arya's pulse quickened. "Then it's time." Lucian turned to her. "No. You stay here." "Lucian." He cut her off with a low growl. "You think this is a game? This isn't training anymore, Arya. It's war." She stepped closer, refusing to back down. "And you need me. Whether you like it or not, my power could turn the tide." He glared at her, but the bond between them pulsed, defying his command. He could feel her determination as sharply as his own heartbeat. Finally, he exhaled slowly. "Fine. But you stay with me. Always." Arya nodded. "Deal." By nightfall, the pack moved out. Dozens of shifters, both human and wolf, slipped through the forest like shadows. The air was thick with rain and tension. Arya stayed beside Lucian, her heart pounding so loud she was sure Dominion could hear it. When they reached the ridge overlooking the valley, she saw the base, floodlights, trucks, cages, and soldiers in dark armor. Drones hovered in the air like mechanical vultures. Lucian's eyes flashed gold. "They've taken prisoners," he growled. Darius nodded grimly. "At least 20 shifters. Probably experiments." Lucian's voice dropped to a growl. "We end this." He turned to Arya. "You stay back until the signal." "What's the signal?" she asked. "You'll know," he said, his voice low and certain. Then he shifted. The sound of bones and muscle changing was both violent and beautiful. In seconds, the man was gone, replaced by the massive black wolf eyes burning like molten gold. The rest of the pack followed, a storm of fur and fury rushing into the valley. Arya stood frozen for half a breath, then raised her hands. The light within her flared, golden threads wrapping around her fingers. She whispered to the bond to him and felt his answer through the echo in her chest. "Now." She released it. Light poured from her palms, a wave of energy that rippled through the battlefield. Shifters surged forward with renewed strength, their wounds closed faster, their movements sharper. Bullets slowed as if time itself hesitated. Dominion soldiers shouted in confusion, their machines faltering under the strange force. But then a scream tore through the night, not human, not wolf. Something else. A figure emerged from the heart of the base, tall, monstrous, half metal, half flesh. Its eyes glowed red. Dr. Voss's voice came from its speakers, twisted with madness. "You should have stayed hidden, Arya." Lucian's wolf form snarled, charging forward, but the creature moved impossibly fast, slamming him into the ground. Sparks flew where its claws met stone. "Lucian!" Arya cried, sprinting forward. She raised her hands, the golden light blazing. She sent it crashing into the hybrid soldier, knocking it back, but the strain hit her like a hammer. The world spun. Lucian rose, blood on his muzzle, and lunged again. His claws tore into steel. Arya pushed harder, feeding him her strength through the bond. Light and darkness moved together, wolf and healer, alpha and Luna, bound by something stronger than flesh. Finally, Lucian's claws pierced the hybrid's chest. The creature screamed, metal melting under the surge of combined energy. Then it collapsed, sparks dying under the rain. The battlefield fell silent. Lucian shifted back, chest heaving, his body streaked with blood and rain. He turned to Arya, who stood trembling, her glow fading fast. "You did it," he said softly. "We did it," she corrected, voice barely more than a whisper. Then her knees buckled. Lucian caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was pale, her pulse faint. He pressed a hand to her face. "Stay with me, Arya." Her eyes fluttered. "Told you. I'd fight with you." He held her close, the scent of rain and blood mixing in the air. Around them, the surviving wolves raised their heads and howled, not in grief, but in victory. Lucian lifted his gaze to the crimson moon rising above the valley. He knew this was only the beginning. Dominion would come again, stronger. But as he looked down at the woman in his arms, glowing faintly even in unconsciousness, he knew one truth above all others. She wasn't just his weakness. She was his weapon. And together, they were unstoppable. Rain fell hard over the valley, washing blood into the soil. The battle was over, but the hollow was quiet in a way that didn't feel like peace. The air was thick with exhaustion, grief, and the scent of burned metal. Lucian carried Arya through the gate, his steps steady despite the cuts across his body. She was still unconscious, her head resting against his chest, her faint pulse beating against his palm. Each heartbeat reassured him she was alive, but barely. "Clear the hall," he commanded as they entered the main building. His voice echoed, low and powerful. "I need Myra, now." Pack members scattered to obey. Myra appeared moments later, eyes wide when she saw Arya's limp body. "Lucian, what happened?" "She burned herself out," he said tightly. "She used her gift to fuel the entire pack. I tried to pull her back, she wouldn't stop." Myra's hands glowed faintly as she pressed them over Arya's chest. "Her energy's unstable. The bond is the only thing keeping her alive." Lucian's jaw clenched. "Then I'll give her mine." Myra looked up sharply. "No. If you do that." "I don't care," he growled. "Do it." Myra hesitated, then nodded. "Fine. Sit." Lucian lowered himself onto the floor, cradling Arya in his lap. Myra placed a small crystal bowl between them, filled with water and ash. "Touch the water with your blood," she instructed. "Then hers. The bond will find balance." Lucian sliced his palm with a knife and let a drop fall. Then he took Arya's hand and pressed her fingertip to the bowl. The moment their blood mixed, the air shifted, a pulse of light rippled outward, bending the flames in the lanterns. Arya's body arched, her breath catching in her throat. Lucian felt it, the connection, fierce and electric, lashing through his veins. His heartbeat merged with hers, his strength flowing into her like a tide. Myra stepped back, shielding her eyes as the light filled the room. The glow lasted only seconds but felt eternal. Then it faded, leaving Lucian gasping, sweat running down his temple. Arya's chest rose. Slowly, her eyes fluttered open. "Lucian," she whispered weakly. He exhaled shakily. "You're safe." Her hand brushed his face, fingers trembling. "I thought you were." "You thought wrong," he murmured, pressing her hand against his heart. "I told you, you don't get rid of me that easily." Myra exhaled in relief. "She'll need rest, but she'll live." Lucian nodded without looking away from Arya. Everyone out. When the door closed behind them, silence filled the room, soft and heavy. Lucian stroked her hair, his thumb tracing the faint mark glowing at her throat, a crescent shape that shimmered like gold under her skin. She followed his gaze. "What is that?" "The bond mark," he said quietly. "The moon's seal. It means our lives are tied." Arya swallowed. "So that's permanent." "Yes." His tone was gentle but certain. "Even death can't sever it now." She met his gaze, her voice soft. "Then you shouldn't have done it." He tilted his head. Would you rather I let you die? She looked away. I don't want you to lose yourself because of me. Lucien smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. Too late for that. By morning, the hollow had returned to uneasy calm. The wounded were healing, the fires were gone, but the fear lingered. Everyone knew Dominion wasn't finished. Arya woke to the sound of footsteps outside her room. Lucien was gone, but a tray of food waited by her bedside and beside it, a folded map marked with red circles. When she picked it up, her stomach turned. Each circle represented a Dominion facility and there were dozens. A knock sounded. Myra stepped in, her expression grave. He's planning something. What? Arya asked. A counterstrike. He means to destroy every Dominion lab connected to the hybrid project. Arya set the map down. He can't do that alone. Myra hesitated. He's not alone. The other alphas have agreed to unite, but they'll only follow him if he proves he can control the healer. Arya frowned. Control me? They fear your power, Myra said gently. They think you'll lose control and destroy everything. Arya felt a sting of anger. So I'm supposed to be a weapon and nothing more? Not to Lucien, Myra said softly. But to them, yes. Arya clenched her fists. Then I'll show them I'm more than that. Later that night, she found Lucien outside, standing at the cliff's edge where they'd trained. The wind tugged at his coat, the moonlight outlining the hard lines of his shoulders. You should be resting, he said without turning. I'm done resting, she replied. You're planning to go to war. He finally looked at her. They won't stop until we strike first. I know, she said quietly. That's why I'm coming with you. Lucien's eyes hardened. No. Don't start that again. Arya, he said, stepping closer, you nearly died last night. And if I hadn't been there, you might have, she countered. We're stronger together, you said it yourself. He held her gaze, jaw tight. You don't understand what war does to people like us. Then make me understand, she said softly. Teach me. But don't shut me out. For a moment, his mask cracked. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You have no idea how much I want to keep you safe. She smiled faintly. Then stop trying to do it alone. He sighed, eyes closing briefly. You're impossible. Lucky for you, she said, you're stuck with me. A low laugh escaped him, rare and warm. Fine. But you follow my lead. No heroics. Deal, she said, though her tone carried quiet defiance. Lucien shook his head, smiling despite himself. You'll be the death of me, Arya Lane. She met his gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. Or the reason you live. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind howled through the cliffs, carrying the promise of war. 2 days later, the packs assembled in the Valley of Echoes, a vast clearing surrounded by stone ridges where shifters from every territory came to swear allegiance or challenge it. Arya had never seen so many wolves in one place. Hundreds stood in human form, eyes gleaming with animal light, their clothes marked with the sigils of their clans. The air vibrated with energy, primal, ancient, fierce. Lucien stood at the center, his presence commanding the space like gravity. Darius stood beside him, while Arya lingered a few steps behind, every gaze burning against her skin. A man stepped forward from the crowd, tall, broad, with silver-streaked hair and eyes the color of ice. Lucien Vale, he said loudly. We've followed you for years, but now you bring a human into our ranks. One whose power even you can't control? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lucien's jaw tightened. Arya Lane is not a threat. She's our ally, our healer. The man sneered. Healer? She's a weapon. Dominion's bait. Lucien's eyes darkened. Say that again. I said she'll be the end of us all. Before Lucien could respond, Arya stepped forward. Enough. The crowd fell silent. She met the man's gaze, her voice steady despite the fear crawling under her skin. You're right. I'm dangerous. But so is every one of you. The difference is, I don't hide it. I use it to protect people, including those who think I shouldn't exist. A murmur of surprise ran through the gathering. The silver-haired alpha looked at her coldly. Bold words for someone who bleeds mortal. Arya took a breath, raised her hand, and let her light flare, soft but powerful, washing over the valley like dawn. The wolves nearest her stepped back instinctively. The injured among them gasped as wounds closed, bruises faded. "I'm not your weakness," she said. "I'm your shield." Lucien watched her, pride glinting in his eyes. When she turned to face him, he nodded slightly. "Well said." The silver-haired alpha hesitated, then lowered his head. "Then may the moon guide you, healer." Lucien stepped forward, his voice rising above the wind. "Then it's decided. We stand united. Tonight, we end Dominion's war." The packs howled in unison, the sound echoing across the mountains, a sound of power, fury, and ancient strength. That night, under the glow of the crescent moon, Lucien stood with Arya at the edge of the encampment. Fires burned across the valley, casting long shadows on their faces. "Tomorrow we strike," Lucien said. "Our scouts found Dominion's command base. Voss will be there." Arya's stomach knotted. "Then this ends tomorrow." "Yes." He turned toward her, his expression unreadable. "And whatever happens, you stay close. If the bond flares again, it could draw them straight to you." She nodded, though worry prickled beneath her skin. "What if it's too strong to control?" He reached out, brushing his thumb along her jaw. "Then I'll help you control it." She looked up at him, eyes shining in the firelight. "Lucien." He leaned in, their foreheads touching. For a moment, the world went quiet, only their shared heartbeat filling the silence. "You are the fire they'll never understand," he whispered. "And I'll burn with you if I must." Arya's chest tightened. "You always know the most dangerous things to say." "It's part of my charm." She laughed softly. "If we live through this, I'm making you teach me how to shift." He smiled faintly. "If we live through this, I'll teach you anything you want." The wind rose, carrying the scent of rain and ash. Far below, thunder rolled, or maybe it was the sound of Dominion's engines approaching through the night. Lucien straightened. "It's time." Arya took his hand. "Then let's finish this." Together, they walked down toward the valley, where hundreds of wolves waited for their alpha and Luna to lead them into war. The night hummed with power, the bond between them blazing like a flame that could not be extinguished. And as the first lightning split the sky, Arya realized something deep in her bones, that fate had never been an accident. It had been a call. And she had finally answered it. The world was silver and shadow when the army of wolves began to move. Clouds rolled low over the mountains, hiding the moon's face. The air crackled with energy, thunder above, and something darker below. From her place beside Lucien at the head of the march, Arya could feel it, a heavy rhythm thrumming through the ground, the pulse of hundreds of hearts moving as one. The forest was alive with motion, whispering leaves brushing against armor, claws scraping stone. Lucien walked ahead, tall and silent, his coat brushing his knees, his expression carved in cold steel. The pack moved with quiet obedience behind him. When he spoke, his voice was barely more than a growl, but every shifter heard it clearly. "Tonight we take back what was stolen. Dominion thought we'd crawl into the dark and hide, they were wrong. We fight for our freedom, our blood, and for the ones they took." The wolves howled as one, the sound shaking the air like thunder rolling across the valley. Arya's pulse raced, her light flickering faintly under her skin. Lucien turned to her, eyes glowing gold. "Stay behind me. If the bond pulls, resist it." She nodded, gripping the silver dagger Darius had given her. "Just don't get yourself killed." Lucien gave a rare, fleeting smile. "You say that as if I planned to." They reached the ridge overlooking Dominion's main compound just before dawn. Below them sprawled a fortress of steel and floodlights, surrounded by fences and armed guards. Drones buzzed overhead, their red sensors scanning the mist. Lucien crouched, signaling the others. Phase 1, silent infiltration. Darius gave a sharp nod, and several groups split away, melting into the shadows. Wolves slipped between trees, moving too fast for human eyes to track. Within minutes, the outer watchtowers went dark one by one, silent kills, efficient and quick. Arya crouched beside Lucien, heart hammering. "You've done this before." "Too many times," he murmured. When the last light died, he gave a low growl, the signal to advance. The pack poured down the hill like a living storm, their forms shifting mid-run, human turning to wolf, shadow turning to fury. Arya followed, her dagger ready. The first Dominion soldier didn't even see her before she struck, a flash of gold and silver, the knife finding its mark. Shock coursed through her. It was the first time she'd taken a life. But there was no time to feel. Focus, Lucien barked. Stay with me. Gunfire erupted, shattering the quiet. Bullets hissed past. Lucien's wolves tore through the front line, claws rending armor, jaws breaking steel. Arya stayed close, light bursting from her hands to shield those near her. The air filled with chaos, smoke, screams, the metallic tang of blood and ozone. Lucien fought like something ancient, his movements precise and merciless. Every strike was a promise, every kill, a message. When they reached the heart of the base, Lucien kicked open the heavy doors of the central lab. The smell hit them first, antiseptic, oil, and the copper stench of old blood. Inside were rows of glass chambers filled with a murky green fluid. Bodies floated inside, half human, half beast, their eyes closed, their chests rising and falling faintly. Arya's stomach turned. What is this? Dominion's future, Lucien said grimly. An army they can control. Then we end it, she whispered. He nodded. Find the power core. I'll deal with Voss. Before she could answer, a voice echoed through the room. You're too late, Lucien. Dr. Voss stepped from the shadows, wearing a long black coat, his face lit by the glow of machines. The veins in his neck pulsed faintly with metallic light, he was no longer entirely human. Lucien's eyes narrowed. You're a fool if you think you can stop me. Voss smiled thinly. I don't need to stop you. I only need her. He snapped his fingers. Panels in the walls slid open, and silver cables shot out, wrapping around Arya's arms and waist. She gasped as electricity surged through her, locking her body in place. Arya! Lucien roared, lunging forward, but more cables whipped around him, dragging him down. He fought, teeth bared, muscles straining, but the metal burned like acid. Voss approached Arya, his eyes cold and hungry. Do you know what you are? You're the key to perfection. The union of life and power. Your blood will make us gods. Lucien's growl rumbled like thunder. Touch her, and I'll rip your heart out. Voss ignored him, reaching out to brush his fingers against Arya's cheek. Such beautiful energy. Let's see how bright you burn. He pressed a button on the console. Pain exploded through her. Arya screamed, light bursting from her skin, wild, uncontrollable, blinding. The cables melted, the machines sparked. Lucien tore free, smoke rising from his burned arms. He lunged at Voss, slamming him into the wall. Metal screeched as the Alpha's claws raked across the man's chest, tearing through flesh and steel alike. Voss laughed, blood spilling from his lips. Even if you kill me, you can't stop what's begun. She's awakening, Lucien. Soon she'll burn you too. Lucien snarled and crushed his throat with a single, swift motion. Voss went still. He turned to Arya. She stood trembling, light still flaring around her, her eyes glowing white. Arya, he said, stepping closer. You have to stop. I can't, she gasped. It's too much. Lucien reached for her, ignoring the searing heat. He gripped her face in his hands. Look at me. Her gaze met his. For a moment, the world narrowed to that single connection, two hearts, one rhythm. Breathe, he whispered. You're not alone. I'm here. The light flickered, then steadied. Slowly, painfully, it dimmed until the room fell into silence once more. Arya sagged against him, shaking. I thought I'd lost myself. Lucien held her close. You found me instead. Outside, the howls of victory echoed through the valley. Dominion's base burned, the fire lighting the dawn sky like the rising sun. But as Lucien looked at the horizon, he knew it wasn't over. The war had only begun, and the light inside Arya was growing stronger than even he could control. The hollow was quiet again, but it was the silence that follows a storm, heavy, waiting. The survivors returned carrying scars both visible and unseen. Arya sat near the fire in the council hall, her hands wrapped in bandages. She could still feel the echo of that wild energy under her skin, like lightning trapped inside her veins. Myra approached, kneeling beside her. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm still glowing," Arya murmured. "But I can't tell if it's good or bad." Myra studied her. "It's power, raw and new. You're evolving, Arya. The healer line has awakened completely. That's what I'm afraid of." Before Myra could reply, Lucian entered the hall. His presence filled the space like a shadow stretching across light. He looked tired, blood still staining his sleeve, a bruise darkening his jaw, but his eyes burned with purpose. "The packs are gathering," he said. "Voss is dead, but Dominion isn't finished. They'll come harder next time." Darius stepped from behind him, carrying a blood-stained datapad. "We found this in the lab. It's their next target." He set it on the table. "The city." Arya's stomach sank. "You mean humans?" Lucian nodded. "They plan to release a toxin, something that will trigger shifter genes in the human population. Most won't survive the change. Then we have to stop it," Arya said. Lucian looked at her, his expression dark. "You can't fight again so soon. Your body isn't ready." She rose to her feet. "Neither is yours." Their eyes met, sparks of defiance and something deeper passing between them. Finally, Lucian sighed. "You're impossible. I learned from the best." He smiled faintly. "Then we go at sunset." That evening, they rode through the mountains toward the human city. The road was quiet, lined with dark pines and mist. Lucian rode ahead, Arya beside him, her hood pulled up. The faint glow of her mark pulsed softly at her throat. As they neared the outskirts, she spoke. "Lucian, what happens if I lose control again?" "Then I bring you back," he said simply. "And if you can't?" He turned his head, eyes meeting hers. "Then I burn with you." Her chest tightened, but she didn't look away. "You really don't do halfway, do you?" "Not with you." The city appeared in the distance, its skyline lit with flickering lights and smoke. Dominion's presence was everywhere: armored trucks, soldiers, and banners displaying the symbol of the new regime. Lucian dismounted, scanning the horizon. "The toxins in the central tower. We end it there." They moved through the dark streets, avoiding patrols. The city felt dead, no civilians, just the echo of footsteps and the hum of machines. When they reached the tower, Lucian broke the lock on a service door. Inside, the air was cold and chemical. The scent of poison clung to the walls. At the heart of the chamber stood a massive cylinder filled with swirling green gas. Dominion scientists lay dead nearby, their own creation turned against them. Arya stepped forward. "We can destroy it, right?" Lucian frowned. "It's unstable. One spark and it'll spread faster than fire." She looked at the containment lines. "Then we don't destroy it. We neutralize it." Lucian caught her arm. "How?" She met his gaze. "By absorbing it." "No," his voice was sharp. "That could kill you." "It's the only way," she said. "You said it yourself, my power's life itself. Maybe I can turn death into something else." Lucian's jaw clenched. "Arya, listen to me." She pressed her hand against his chest. "Trust me." His heartbeat thundered under her palm. Finally, he nodded once. "I'll never forgive you if you die." "I won't," she whispered. "Not as long as you're with me." She stepped into the circle of light and raised her hands. The toxin hissed, swirling violently as she began to draw it in. Her body lit from within, gold against green, as the gas poured toward her, dissolving into streams of light. Pain seared through her. She screamed, but didn't stop. The power coursed through every cell, threatening to tear her apart. Lucian shouted her name, but she shook her head. "Stay back." The light grew blinding. The cylinder cracked, glass shattering around her, and then, with a sound like thunder, the toxin vanished. When the light faded, Arya collapsed. Lucian caught her, his heart pounding. Her skin was cold, her breathing shallow, but the glow beneath her skin still pulsed, softer now, steadier. He pressed his forehead to hers. "Come back," he whispered. "Please." Her eyes fluttered open. "You really need to stop saving me." He laughed, half broken, half relieved. Never. Outside, the city lights flickered back to life as dawn broke over the horizon. The poison was gone, the threat ended. But both of them knew this wasn't victory, it was survival. Lucien looked down at her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You keep risking everything for people who don't even know you exist. Arya smiled weakly. That's what makes it worth it. He kissed her forehead, his voice barely a whisper. Then we fight for them. Together. And as the sun rose, painting the world in gold and blood, the Alpha King carried his Luna from the ruins, their bond glowing brighter than the dawn. Dawn crept over the mountains in slow, golden threads, bleeding light across the smoke-choked city. The silence that followed the battle was thick, heavy with the weight of everything lost. Dominion's forces were gone, their machines destroyed, but the cost lingered in every breath. Lucien stood at the window of a half-ruined building, watching the horizon. His clothes were torn, his hands still streaked with soot. Behind him, Arya slept on a makeshift bed pale, her body motionless except for the faint rise and fall of her chest. He hadn't left her side since the toxin. When she'd drawn the poison into herself, he had felt it through the bond, the pain, the fear, the unbearable burning. He'd thought she was gone, that the light had consumed her. But she'd survived again. Barely. He turned as she stirred. Her eyelashes fluttered, and she opened her eyes slowly, squinting at the sunlight. Lucien. Her voice was soft, fragile. He crossed the room in 2 strides and knelt beside her. I'm here. She smiled faintly. You always are. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. You shouldn't have done that. I had to, she whispered. You know I did. I would have found another way. No, she said gently. You would have died trying. He sighed, lowering his head. You can't keep trading your life for ours. She reached out, her fingers curling weakly around his wrist. And you can't keep pretending you don't care. He froze. Their eyes met, hers tired but steady, his unreadable as stone. Finally, he said quietly, caring for you doesn't mean I want to lose you. Then stop pushing me away, she whispered. Before he could answer, Darius entered, his boots echoing on the cracked floor. We found something. Lucien stood, his expression hardening. Report. Darius handed him a small, black device. This was buried in the control hub. It's a data core, Dominion's archives. Voss wasn't just experimenting on shifters. He was building something bigger. Lucien frowned. Bigger how? Darius hesitated. A hybrid army was only phase 1. Phase 2 was gods. Arya pushed herself up weakly. Gods. Engineered immortals, Darius said grimly. He was using healer DNA. Yours. Lucien's hand tightened around the device. So even in death, the bastard's still haunting us. There's more, Darius continued. The data shows Voss wasn't working alone. Dominion has a council, 7 members, hidden in different territories. And one of them is. Spit it out, Lucien snapped. Darius looked uneasy. One of them is a shifter. The room went silent. Arya frowned. That can't be right. It's true, Darius said. A traitor. Someone feeding Dominion our weaknesses. Lucien's jaw clenched. Do we know who? Not yet. The files are encrypted. Lucien stared out the window, the light sharpening the lines of his face. Then we find them. And we burn them. They left the city by nightfall, heading back toward the hollow. The forest welcomed them like an old friend, damp earth, whispering leaves, the scent of pine and blood. Arya rode behind Lucien, her arms wrapped around his waist. The steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her hands grounded her, even when fear gnawed at her mind. What if it's someone you know? She asked quietly. Lucien didn't answer for a long time. It always is, he said finally. The hollow appeared by dawn, its gates opening to welcome them home. Wolves ran alongside their horses, howling in greeting. But there was no celebration this time, only relief. Myra was waiting at the entrance. We've been tracking signals from Dominion's drones, she said as they dismounted. They're watching again. Lucien cursed softly. Then the traitors already moving. Arya frowned. Do you trust everyone here? I did, Lucian said. Until now. That night, the Hollow gathered for council. The great hall flickered with torchlight, shadows dancing across carved walls. Every leader of every pack sat in a wide circle, their expressions tense. Lucian stood in the center, radiating authority. Arya sat beside him, silent, her presence a steadying light against the darkness. The Dominion Council exists, Lucian said, his voice carrying through the hall. 7 members. One of them a shifter. A traitor who's been feeding our enemies. Angry murmurs broke out. Do we have a name? One asked. Not yet, Lucian replied. But we will. Until then, no one leaves the Hollow without my command. A voice rose from the back, cold, challenging. And what if the traitor sits among us now? Lucian's eyes snapped to the speaker, a tall man with scarred hands and sharp grey eyes. Alpha Cade Vale. His younger brother. Arya stiffened. She'd seen Cade before, quiet, calculating, the kind of man who smiled without warmth. Lucian's tone dropped to a growl. Careful, brother. Cade smirked. Only pointing out what everyone's thinking. Dominion's attacks started after she arrived. He nodded toward Arya. Lucian's eyes blazed. Say that again. Cade raised a brow. You brought a human into our world. A healer whose power we barely understand. Dominion tracks her like a beacon. Maybe the traitor isn't one of us, maybe it's her. Gasps rippled through the room. Arya felt heat rush to her face, a mix of anger and fear. That's enough, Lucian snapped. Watch your tongue. Cade smiled thinly. If I didn't know better, brother, I'd say you're protecting her because you're blinded by her. Lucian took a step forward. Say one more word. Stop. Arya's voice cut through the hall like a blade. She rose, standing between them. If you think I'm the traitor, prove it. Search me. Search my quarters. I have nothing to hide. Lucian turned to her, his expression pained. You don't have to. Yes, I do, she said firmly. If this is what it takes to stop the doubt, I'll do it. Cade tilted his head. Brave words. Truth doesn't need bravery, she said. Just proof. The hall fell silent. Cade studied her, then smirked. Fine. Let the moon judge. Lucian growled low. This isn't a trial. It is now, Cade said, turning to the others. The moon's oath will reveal lies. If she's innocent, she lives. If not, you'll have to go through me, Lucian said coldly. Cade's smile didn't fade. Wouldn't be the first time, brother. Later, under the full moon, Arya stood in the courtyard surrounded by the pack. A circle of silver ash marked the ground, ancient symbols glowing faintly in the dirt. The ritual was older than any living shifter, meant to reveal deceit by burning through false bonds. Lucian stood at her side. You don't have to do this. I do, she said softly. If I run from this, they'll never trust me. He touched her hand. If anything happens. I know, she whispered. You'll burn the world. A faint smile touched his lips. Exactly. Myra stepped forward, carrying a bowl of water and silver dust. The oath begins, she said, voice steady. Arya Lane, do you swear truth to the moon? I swear. She sprinkled the dust into the water, and it began to glow. Then let it be known, if deceit lives within you, the bond will break. Lucian stiffened. What? Myra met his eyes. If she's lying, your bond will shatter permanently. Arya looked up at him. It's okay. No, it isn't, he said, voice tight. You don't know what that would do to me. She smiled faintly. Maybe it's time you trust me too. Myra handed her the bowl. Arya drank. The water burned cold as it slid down her throat. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the world exploded in light. The moon's glow intensified, washing over the hollow. Arya gasped, falling to her knees as visions flooded her mind, flashes of faces, screams, a hand pressing a button, a wolf's howl echoing in the dark. Lucian caught her as she shuddered. Arya. Her eyes snapped open, glowing gold. It's not me, she whispered. It's him. Who? Her gaze flicked past him, locking onto Cade. It's always been him. Gasps broke out. Cade's expression hardened. Lies. But the moonlight shifted, bathing him in harsh silver. Smoke began to rise from his skin, the mark of falsehood. Lucien's fury ignited. You betrayed us. Cade sneered, the mask finally breaking. You made me a shadow while you played king. Dominion offered me what you never did, freedom. Lucien's growl shook the air. You sold your pack for power. I saved it from you. Cade shouted, eyes wild. You think this bond of yours makes you invincible? It makes you weak. Lucien moved before anyone could blink. He struck, claws flashing. Cade met him with a snarl, their strength colliding like thunder. The courtyard erupted in chaos, wolves shifting, roaring, circling. Arya forced herself up, her vision spinning. Lucien, stop. But the bond flared, white-hot, violent. She felt his rage like it was her own, burning through her chest. The world blurred. Pain surged through her veins, the light inside her screaming to be released. She staggered forward, raising her hand. Lucien. He froze mid-blow, chest heaving, claws inches from Cade's throat. The glow from Arya's mark brightened, wrapping them both in golden light. Lucien's fury broke. He stepped back, breathing hard. Cade collapsed to his knees, defeated, the mark of the traitor burned deep into his skin. Myra stepped forward. The moon has spoken. Lucien turned away, his shoulders rigid. Lock him up. As the guards dragged Cade away, Arya swayed. Lucien caught her before she fell again. You shouldn't have interfered, he murmured. If I hadn't, you'd have killed him, she whispered weakly. Maybe he deserved it. Maybe, she said softly. But then you'd have become him. He stared at her, and for the first time, the Alpha King's eyes showed something rare. Not fury. Not power. Fear. You don't know what it's like to carry this, he said. To lose control. She smiled faintly. Then let me carry some of it with you. Lucien held her tighter, the bond between them thrumming steady and strong. Around them, the moonlight dimmed, leaving only the echo of its truth. And somewhere deep in the Hollows Mountains, the remnants of Dominion stirred again, for every secret revealed only led to darker ones waiting in the shadows. The Hollow felt colder after Cade's imprisonment. The air that once pulsed with the heartbeats of hundreds of wolves now throbbed with unease. Whispers followed Lucien wherever he went, whispers of betrayal, of doubt, of bloodlines cursed by the moon. Lucien stood on the balcony overlooking the valley, his hands gripping the stone rail until it cracked beneath his fingers. The forest below glowed faintly under moonlight, alive yet watchful. He hadn't slept since the trial. The image of his brother bound, marked by the moon's judgment, eyes blazing with hatred, would not leave his mind. Lucien. Arya's voice drifted softly behind him. He didn't turn. You should be resting. I could say the same to you. She stepped closer, wrapping her shawl tighter around her shoulders. The night air was sharp, scented with pine and rain. When she reached his side, she looked up at him, worry shadowing her face. You haven't spoken since the trial, she said gently. There's nothing left to say. There's everything left to say, she countered. He's your brother. Lucien's jaw tightened. He stopped being that the moment he sold us to Dominion. Arya touched his arm. His still blood. He turned, eyes burning gold in the moonlight. Blood doesn't make you family, Arya. Loyalty does. Her hand dropped. You're afraid. He stiffened. Of what? Of losing control, she said softly. Of becoming what you hate. Lucien didn't answer. He turned back toward the forest, his expression unreadable. You don't understand what's coming. Then make me understand, she whispered. He exhaled slowly. Dominion's experiments weren't meant to end with hybrids. Cade mentioned something during the fight, a project called Eclipse. He said they were making kings out of corpses. Arya frowned. What does that mean? Lucien's eyes darkened. It means they found a way to turn shifter blood into something that doesn't die. Immortality, Arya. But at a price. What kind of price? The kind that kills the soul first. A sharp cry echoed from the forest below. Lucien's head snapped up, instincts flaring. The howl wasn't from any wolf in his pack, it was low, guttural, almost mechanical. Darius burst through the door behind them. Alpha. It's the sentries, they're under attack. Lucian didn't hesitate. Sound the alarm. Everyone to the perimeter. He shifted mid-stride, his body twisting, bones reshaping, fur bursting across his skin. The black wolf hit the ground running, the forest trembling beneath his paws. Arya followed, heart pounding, light already crackling under her fingers. When they reached the clearing, the night was on fire. Wolves lay scattered, groaning in pain. The attackers were unlike anything Arya had seen, towering creatures of metal and sinew, their eyes glowing red, their movements precise and inhuman. Hybrids, Darius growled beside her. But, improved. Lucian lunged, colliding with one midair. His claws tore through its chest, sparks flying, but the creature didn't fall. It turned, metal jaws snapping, driving a blade into his side. Lucian! Arya cried. Her power surged before she could think. Golden light exploded from her palms, slamming into the hybrid and burning through its armor. It shrieked, collapsing into ash. Lucian stumbled, blood dark against his fur. He shifted back, gasping, clutching the wound. There's more coming. They're using the bond to find us. Arya pressed her glowing hands to his side, closing the wound as fast as it opened. Then we break the trail. He gritted his teeth. That could kill you. Or save everyone, she said, voice trembling but resolute. Lucian grabbed her wrist. You're not doing it alone. Their eyes met, the bond flaring, and in that moment, their power merged. The light and shadow of them intertwined, spinning into a storm that lit the forest like day. The hybrids froze, blinded. The energy surged outward, consuming them one by one until the night went still again. When it ended, Lucian dropped to his knees, breath ragged. Arya fell beside him, her light fading to embers. Lucian, she whispered. They were stronger than before. He looked at the scorched remains. That's not all. They weren't sent to kill us. Then what? He met her eyes, his voice low. They were sent to test us. By morning, smoke rose from the edges of the hollow. Myra tended to the wounded, her face grim. Half the sentries are down. Whatever those things were, they knew exactly where to hit. Lucian paced before the war table, his jaw tight. Which means Dominion's still tracking us. Even without Cade. Arya stood at his side, arms crossed. Maybe he wasn't the only traitor. Darius frowned. You think someone else inside the hollows working with them? Arya met Lucian's gaze. If they were testing us, they needed information from someone close. Lucian's eyes narrowed. Then we find them. He slammed his hand on the table, scattering maps. Double patrols. No one moves alone. I want every communication traced. Myra hesitated. Lucian, if they can use the bond to track her. They won't, he cut in sharply. I'll make sure of it. Arya's expression softened. You can't protect me from everything. He turned to her, voice low but fierce. Watch me. That night, Lucian didn't sleep. He sat in his quarters, staring at the flickering fire, his hands stained with the memory of ash. The bond pulsed faintly in his chest, Arya's heartbeat echoing against his own, steady and warm. A knock came at the door. Enter, he said. Darius stepped in. We decrypted part of the data core. Lucian straightened. What did you find? Darius set a tablet on the table, its screen glowing with scrolling lines of code. Project Eclipse was designed to resurrect Alpha bloodlines. Dominion planned to take the strongest shifters ever recorded and fuse them with machine vessels. Lucian's stomach turned cold. They're creating immortal alphas. Darius nodded grimly. And they used Cade to get the genetic samples. Lucian closed his eyes. Then he wasn't just a traitor. He was their key. A faint voice came from behind them. He's not their only one. They turned. Arya stood in the doorway, pale but determined. They don't just have his DNA. They have mine too. Lucian rose instantly. What do you mean? When I destroyed the toxin, the gas wasn't just chemical. It was digital, nanotech. It copied me. Darius cursed under his breath. Then they can make another you. Not exactly, she said quietly. A version of me. But twisted. Lucian's hands curled into fists. Then we end eclipse before it begins. Arya stepped closer. How? He looked up, firelight catching in his eyes. By burning the world if I have to. 3 nights later, the hollow was abandoned. The packs had scattered to the high mountains while Lucian led a smaller force toward Dominion's new fortress, an underground complex hidden beneath a dead forest. The closer they got, the stranger the air became. The trees were blackened, their trunks humming faintly with electricity. The sky itself seemed bruised. Arya walked beside Lucian in silence, her light dim beneath her skin. She could feel something ahead, a pull, familiar and wrong, like her own heartbeat echoed by a stranger. Do you feel that? She asked. Lucian nodded. It's you. Or something pretending to be. When they reached the gates, there were no guards. Just open steel doors and a scent of ozone. Inside, the halls glowed with sickly blue light. Machines lined the walls, half organic, half metal. Lucian's wolves moved quietly, weapons drawn, but every sound echoed too loud. Then, from the heart of the chamber, came a voice. Welcome home, Alpha King. Lucian's blood froze. He knew that voice. Cade stepped into view unchained, alive, his body altered. His skin shimmered faintly with metallic veins, his eyes burning silver. You should have killed me, Cade said softly. But I suppose you always were sentimental. Lucian's claws slid free. What have they done to you? What I asked them to, Cade replied. Dominion showed me the truth. Power without death. Strength without limits. Arya stepped forward, fury and pity in her gaze. You call this living? He smiled. It's more than your kind ever offered me. But you're the missing piece, aren't you? The light to my brother's shadow. Lucian growled, moving to shield her. You'll touch her over my dead body. Cade tilted his head. That can be arranged. He raised his hand, and the ground split open. From the chasm rose figures that made Arya's blood run cold, copies. Dozens of them. All her. Each one shimmered with golden light, their faces identical, their eyes empty. Meet the eclipsed, Cade said softly. The perfect soldiers, part wolf, part light, no soul. Lucian's voice was low and deadly. I'll destroy them all. Cade smiled. Try. The battle erupted. Wolves clashed with luminous phantoms, steel meeting light in a storm of fury. Lucian tore through them with primal rage, but for every copy that fell, 2 more emerged. Arya fought beside him, her real light slicing through the false ones. But each hit drained her faster, the bond burning white-hot in her chest. They're feeding on me, she gasped. Lucian caught her arm. Then cut them off. End the connection. I can't. He cupped her face, his eyes fierce. Yes, you can. You're stronger than what they made. Her breath shook. If I do this, I might not come back. Lucian pressed his forehead to hers. Then I'm coming with you. Their bond flared, exploding into light and shadow intertwined. The air around them cracked, and the false Aryas screamed as the connection snapped. The golden army burned from within, collapsing into ash. Cade roared in fury, lunging at them. Lucian met him mid-strike, claws clashing against steel, brother against brother. Sparks flew, blood and metal mixing. You were always in my way, Cade shouted. And you were always in my shadow, Lucian growled. Where you belong. He drove his claws into Cade's chest, but instead of blood, light burst forth. Arya realized too late what was happening. Lucian, it's not him, it's a vessel. The light exploded outward. The entire chamber shook, walls cracking. The machines screamed as if alive. Lucian grabbed her, pulling her close. Now, Arya, do it. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. She raised her hands, summoning the last of her power. The light consumed the fortress, swallowing steel, shadow, and sky in one final blaze. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. No sound, no pain, only warmth. Then silence. When Arya opened her eyes, she was lying on the forest floor. Smoke drifted through the air. The fortress was gone, nothing left but ash. Lucian, she whispered. No answer. Panic surged through her. She pushed herself up, searching the ruins. Then she heard it, a faint heartbeat through the bond. Weak, but there. She followed it until she found him lying among the ashes, human again, his chest rising shallowly. Lucien. She fell to her knees, cradling him. He opened his eyes slowly, a faint smile touching his lips. Told you I'd burn with you. She laughed through her tears. Idiot. He reached up, his hand trembling as it brushed her cheek. We did it. Yes, she whispered. It's over. His eyes softened. No. It's beginning. Before she could speak, he pressed his forehead to hers. The bond pulsed once, hard, and she felt something new inside it. Not just him. All of them. The pack. The hollow. Life itself. The moon broke through the clouds, silver light bathing the ruins. Lucien's voice was barely a whisper. You're the light, Arya. Don't let it fade. And as his hand fell, the forest around them stirred, not with death, but with rebirth. Leaves unfurled. The air glowed faintly gold. Lucien's body shimmered, fading into light that wrapped around her like a promise. The Alpha King was gone. But his heartbeat lived on in her, in the hollow, in every creature that howled to the moon that night. And when Arya rose, her mark burning brighter than ever, she knew what she had become. Not just the Luna. Not just the healer. But the light that even death couldn't eclipse. And that was just the beginning. If you felt that heartbeat, if Lucien and Arya's world pulled you in, don't just scroll away. Hit subscribe, tap that notification bell, and join the pack. Because the next chapter, it's going to burn brighter, darker, and deeper than ever. Stay wild. Stay bound. The story continues.